Hello and welcome to Look Down There, the show where we talk about all the things we don't talk about. I'm your host, Michelle Amore. Today, my guest has 25 years of experience in the sexual health world. She is truly a pioneer. She owned G Boutique in Chicago for 20 years and introduced hundreds, if not thousands, of women to the world of pleasure. I myself being one of those women. She is currently the brand director for Uberlube, the premium silicone lubricant. Great stuff. Can't recommend it enough. And she continues to coach individuals, couples, and even corporations on the pursuit of pleasure. Here she is, Cheryl Sloane. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
So good. I'm so happy to reconnect with you. As I was saying before we started recording, you truly were like my first exposure to this kind of world, like the world of sex toys and pleasure. And, you gave me an opportunity at your store to teach burlesque. And that was the first time that I began teaching burlesque was in your store in front of a wall of dildos. Yeah. Yeah, I
I think
remember.
weren't you teaching kids before that?
Yeah, I wasn't teaching them burlesque, but I was,
No,
yeah,
no,
I
let's
was
clean it up.
teaching. Yeah, well, there was a little burlesque in there. They liked it. If I could sneak it in. I remember one time the parents were always like, Michelle, you have a lot of hip choreography. I was like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. So I think, gosh, I don't even remember when that was, but I've been doing burlesque for about 20 years. So at least 19 years ago, I would say I
Right.
started working at your store and teaching burlesque and learning about how to actually teach burlesque and what it is that women needed to get comfortable with their bodies. And it really opened me up to this whole new world. And I have so much respect for you. And I mean, you are a pioneer. You've been doing this for so long.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, well, so before you got into the world of sex and pleasure, you spent 12 years as a producer for Second City in Chicago. So why and how did that transition happen to, you know what, I'm out of showbiz into the sex biz? How did that happen?
So, how it happened was just conversations with girlfriends, really. I had left Second City and I had worked at several other theaters, the Auditorium Theater and some others, and I had general managed a few shows. And I grew up in theater. That's kind of all I knew. And I was just, then my father got sick. He moved to Chicago. I kind of stopped working for a while, took care of him, and he passed. And then we were just girlfriends talking about, like, where do you go to buy sex toys? Well, really what happened is one of my girlfriends was having this big rendezvous with somebody in London and wanted to buy some toys here and take them with her. And there was nowhere comfortable to go in Chicago. And so we wound up ordering stuff online from Good Vibes, probably. And then another friend and I thought, like, why not Chicago? If there are stores in New York and there are stores in LA, why not Chicago? But we all kind of knew why not Chicago, because if you wanted to cater to the masses in Chicago, you had to kind of soften it a little bit. So I grew up with a mom who wore peignoir sets to bed every night. Like, I thought that you could wear t-shirts if you wanted to when you were a kid, but when you grew up, you wore beautiful lingerie. That was just part of growing up. And so we got the idea of mixing lingerie and sex toys, but mixing sort of higher end quality lingerie that people wanted to wear. And so that's what we did. We tried it. It worked for a really long time. And our whole idea was create a place where women are comfortable, create community, let women explore other options in their life. And Then I went to see you on stage at a show on Belmont in Broadway.
Yeah, Lakeshore Theater.
At the Lakeshore Theater. And afterwards I came up to you in the lobby because so when I was 4 years old, I was in the play Gypsy, and I just have this thing for burlesque ever since then. And always would go see it, always read about it, watch it. And I just came up to you in the hallway and was like, will you teach? And you looked at me like, what? I don't know. You know? But you did, and it worked, and it just fit into our aesthetic perfectly.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
I felt like we were empowering women, and really that's what burlesque does. And we're all about that. So it was just more women's empowerment all over the place.
yeah. And then, I was able to learn a lot too, just being in that environment and maybe walking in on a class that was before my class, or just exploring the different toys. And of course, your lingerie was incredible at that store. I mean, I think I worked for lingerie sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of us did. I was an owner, and I worked for lingerie. So
Yeah. I mean, I still have this piece from your store. I think it was Only Hearts is the brand, but it was this beautiful sheer kind of creamy robe with a floral neckline and this long drapey piece in the back. So sexy. Yeah.
yes.
So one of my early press experiences was being photographed at your store because of what I was doing and teaching and all of that. And I think it came out in the Sun-Times, sometimes a Tribune, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it was a big picture of me. And I, had a ratty boa on because I was still a kid and didn't know better. And, my legs were open on your couch. And, my parents saw that article. And so that was kind of like my coming out, because I hadn't really said what I was doing. And so that article was kind of the catalyst for me being kicked out of the family for about 5 or 6 years. And, I get backlash, or I've gotten backlash for what it is that I do. And I can imagine that you've gotten a lot of backlash, especially in Chicago. What kind of backlash did you face, and how did you deal with that?
Well, it was interesting because when Carrie and I opened the store, like, none of our friends or family could believe that that was the store we were opening, because prior to that, we had done a lot of children's theater stuff, not actually children's theater, but coaching kids for theater. And we were talked about doing kids casting and all this stuff, right? And then all of a sudden we're opening a sex toy store. So we decided we had to tell our moms, and my mom came first. So the way I explained it to my mother was to say, that Sex in the City episode with the rabbit? Well, that toy, that vibrator, has sold out all across the country. And my mom looked at me and said, well, how do we get some?
Okay, so she was on board. All right.
And it was that was kind of a surprise, but she just got it. She got the concept. And then I will say I lost some friends that, they didn't ever say anything to me, but they just sort of didn't come around. But the other thing we did was we went and talked to our alderman, who was right across the street. And we were like, this is what we're doing. I hope you're okay with it. If you're not okay with it, we just want to know, because we'll do it somewhere else. And he was totally on board with it as well. So we caused a lot of shock, I think, at first. In fact, there were other stores in the neighborhood that tried to get lingerie vendors to not sell to us because we were selling sex toys. I mean, so there was a lot of trouble in the beginning, but we just we knew who we were, and we knew why we were. And the first thing we did before we opened the store is I have a couple of friends who are very prominent gynecologists in Chicago. And before the doors were even open, they came in and we talked about women's health issues and women's sexual health. And we talked about what toys we could suggest to help women. And that was our vision. You know, our vision was like help people to feel better, to feel better, to feel better about themselves, and to promote self-confidence. And we just knew it in our hearts why we were there. And so it was like, if you don't like us, don't come in. We're still doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, you had a different situation. I remember that whole thing with your family, and it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like worked out. It worked itself out, you know, but it's just the stigma that's around what it is that you were doing and what it is that I was doing, and just the kind of gumption, I guess, that you have to just keep moving forward, and that strong belief, because what I was doing and what you were doing, and you could see it and you could witness it, is empowering women and turning on their lights. And when you see that
Right.
in front of you, when you see that happen in front of you, I mean, that's all the motivation you need to keep going and shut the people out who don't understand, because this is really important work. Like what you did was very important work. And I saw that in the women there all the time.
Yeah. And I remember the day I told my rabbi, and he turned bright red and said, I'm not sure if I could put the mezuzah up. And my cantor said, I'll do it. So, but you know, I think we quickly created a space where women did feel comfortable, and like the people around us knew they could come in and be okay. And I also feel like, you know, sometimes it's like you see a dancer who starts, maybe a burlesque dancer who starts thinking maybe they really can't do this. And then they just open up and they're able to do it. And then this big smile comes over their face and their whole like person changes. I feel like that was the same thing with coming into our store for some people. When they came in, they realized like that they wish this would have been there a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
I think that, you know, the lingerie kind of brought people in, and then the toys made them stay, you know, and
Right. Right.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you found this, but for me, like when I started teaching burlesque and then I opened my own school, I felt like there was a barrier of entry where people had to like really get over whatever kind of hangups they had to even just click the sign up button, or to walk into the door. So I can imagine that walking into G Boutique, these women had to kind of overcome something to even bring themselves in there, because I remember a lot of giggling and a lot of blushing, and some of that was from me.
Right.
Because
And that was the first thing we told people, you're allowed to giggle. Like, that's great. Go ahead and giggle, because they're called toys for a reason. You know, they're supposed to be playful and make you happy and help you. And it's okay. It's fine to giggle. Like let that out. That's good.
Yeah. So I know that you were talking about your mom always wearing her beautiful lingerie to bed. Did you always have or feel connected to your own pleasure, or was there a moment in your life that you were like, wait a minute, I need to access this and come to my
I
own
always
pleasure?
it's interesting. I always tell people that I got very lucky because early on, my experiences with pleasure were positive.
Mm.
And that doesn't happen with everybody. So I always knew that that pleasure was good and that I was capable of having pleasure. You know, I think like your first few sexual experiences really set a path for you.
Mm.
And there's like I don't know what the age is, but there's somewhere in that sexual exploration where if you have good experiences, then you know what you want and what you're allowed to expect. So I got lucky that way. But I also think like I'm always exploring and redefining what pleasure means to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
because I think as you age and change and different things become your definition of pleasure. And that was my whole thing. That it's actually my thing in my coaching, is that I want to help you achieve pleasure. I don't want to define that for you.
Yeah.
You get to define that, right? If a warm bath is pleasure, go for it. If going for a run is pleasure, go for it. I just want you to have more pleasure in your life and feel that presence of pleasure in your daily life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a really good point, because I think sometimes we have a really narrow mind, a narrow view of what pleasure is. Like, pleasure is like, oh, it's multiple orgasms. Like, well, no, it can also be like a really great glass of wine. And it can
Right.
be,
Right.
you could just go for a beautiful walk outside, and, like there's so many different avenues to access different kinds of pleasure. So it doesn't have to be this like one way to do it.
Right. I mean, did you see the moon the other night?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we just stood outside sort of gaping at the moon. I mean, that was amazingly pleasurable to me,
Mm-hmm.
But then also there's all these. So when we started G Boutique, I didn't know that there were people who were not enjoying sex. I mean, besides violence, let's take that out of the equation right now. But just
Yeah.
like people who had relations and sex wasn't good. I just thought everybody was having good sex, because if you were going to have sex, why wouldn't you be going for pleasure? Right. So that was a little ignorant of me. And I learned right away that there were all these people who were not enjoying sex. And it really like focused what we were doing at the store a lot, to have that realization. Because I think in the beginning, especially, a lot of people who decided to work at G, did have some concept of pleasure and were enjoying sex and were maybe a little bit more adventurous, right? And it really gave us a focus, and it really felt good to help people, women who said, oh, I've never actually had an orgasm. Really?
Yeah. I know.
Or men who came in and just sort of like, you know what? Nobody ever taught me how to please a woman.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and my wife won't tell me, and I want her to be pleased. And by the way, that we have that in every religion in the world. Like, the most fundamentalist religious people would come in and be like, it's my duty to please my wife, and I don't know how to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a whole eye-opening thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like you were operating a confessional, essentially. Like,
right.
These are all the things that I can't talk to anybody about, maybe not even my doctor, because as we know, a lot of doctors don't even have a sexual health program that they go to. So,
right.
Who do you turn to if if you don't have a good group of friends like you had, or you're not living the Sex in the City life?
Right.
Like, who do you talk to? Well, you talk to people like yourself, and
yeah, you come into G. That's exactly, that's why we existed. That's why we wanted to be there. And it turned out that a lot of our day was that. I mean, some of it was picking out bachelorette gifts and Valentine's Day gifts, and but a lot of our day was really, really helping women.
I can imagine that you would have had some emotional conversations with people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any one moment in particular that sticks out for you?
Oh, well, my favorite story, and I maybe have told it too much and I need to retire it for a while, but I'm going to tell it again.
Sounds good.
Was this woman called me and wanted to come in, and she didn't want to come in when we were open. So I said, okay, we open at 11. I'll get there at 10. Meet me there at 10. And she was in her 70s, I believe. And she came with her sister. And she told me that, she and her husband still wanted to have sex, but it was getting more difficult for several different reasons. And she thought maybe I had something that could help her. And Um, Her husband had really bad arthritis, and she was postmenopausal and all that. So lube, of course. And then she wouldn't even walk over to the toy cabinet. She sat at a table in front of the books, and I was bringing stuff over to her. And after about an hour, she wound up buying this little vibrator that goes on your finger, the finger tingler, and that's all it was. And it's an external vibe. It's and her sister didn't buy anything, and she went home. And I thought, well, great, she has something. I hope it works. 3 weeks later, I answer the phone, and there's this really gruff voice on the other end. And this man says, "Is your name Cheryl?" And I said, "Yes." You sold my wife something a couple weeks ago. And I was all ready to be like, "You can have your money back. I'm so sorry. Like if it didn't work, I'm sorry." He said, "Is that you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I'm just calling to tell you, you're in my will."
I love it.
So that's one of my favorite stories. But we also had, like, early on, we had this woman who had gone through just horrible chemo and radiation, and she had I think she had her both breasts removed, and we found her a nightgown that she felt good in, and she came back and said, "I just want to thank you. Like, that's the first time I felt good about myself in 2 years." So that stuff is really, like, that's the heartwarming work, is to just feel good. I tell women all the time, like, just get a robe that feels like, get a silky robe, just some little thing that's touching your body that feels good.
Yeah.
Treat yourself to feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, going to your point about pleasure is different for everybody. Like, we don't all have to go out and get the same lingerie set. Like, there's things that we don't feel good in or we don't like. Like, maybe just the feeling of a robe is enough, and that
Right.
makes you feel sexy. It's not like you have to get the corset and the garters and the thigh highs, and you don't have to do all of that stuff.
No, all
Yeah.
you need is a bra that fits, and then we can go from there.
Yep. Well, you mentioned lube, so let's talk about lube. I feel like there's such a stigma around lube, and kind of like a shame of having to use it. What are your feelings about that? Like, why does that exist? Should we be using it all the time, every time? Tell me about it.
Well, at G Boutique, we used to say we're lube snobs. So we believe you should use lube all the time. So I think lube has a stigma because most people's experience with lube is something that's sticky and gummy and unpleasant to use, right? But that's just one little corner of the lube world. Unfortunately, it's also, what a lot of doctors use in their offices. But there's really good lube out there. And I always tell people when they're young to start using lube now, so that when they really need it, it's no change. Like, it's an accessory to sex, because it's great for foreplay and it's great for massage, and it makes you feel better. And it sort of takes that whole, like, am I wet? Am I not wet? Is he, out of the picture, and you're just always ready to do whatever it is that you want to do. But there also comes a time when you need lube. And it happens to everybody. Even if you're on hormone replacement, that doesn't matter. You still need lube. And when you do need lube, it's really important to know a few things about it so that you choose something that's body safe, right? So I now work for Uberlube. Uberlube was our best-selling lube at G. And we were also the first ones. Yeah, we were the first people to sell it. So besides looking beautiful, it has a really good feel to it, and it's silicone based. It's definitely a premium lube. It's in a glass bottle, which makes it biostatic, so nothing gets in it. What we put in that bottle is the same throughout the life of the lube. But most important, it's not sticky and gummy. It stays on the surface of your skin, so a little bit goes a long way, and it always feels slippery. So it's much easier to use a lube that you don't have to keep reapplying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about a silicone lube. And silicone doesn't absorb into your skin because the molecules are bigger than our skin barrier. So it's very body safe. You don't have to worry about some water-based lubes actually dry you out.
Yeah, I hate them. Like, I have not found a good water-based lube, and it's frustrating because you can't use like silicone lube with silicone toys, but like most toys
Right.
are silicone. So can we change that? Because I hate water lubes. I hate
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. A lot of the water lubes, there's this, the phrase is osmolality. They change the osmolality in your vagina. So they're actually drawing water out of you, but there are good ones. There's good ones out there. And
Well,
I
you'll
don't
have
know,
to
maybe
tell me
one
what
day.
those are.
Yeah, you got to really check the osmolality and try a few, because they're good ones, but they're not always good for you.
Mhm.
Everybody's different. But one thing I will say is that you don't want any glycerin in your lube, because glycerin's sugar, and that's what makes lube sticky and gummy. There's differing opinions on this, but from my experience, it can cause a yeast infection if you're prone to yeast infection. And besides, you want a lube that's fun to use. You want a lube that's slippery and not sticky. So you want to make sure, and glycerin would only be in a water-based lube. And all those like tasty lubes and flavored lubes all have glycerin in them.
Yeah.
Well, almost all. So just be careful if you're using them to not get them in your vagina. We have to take care of our vaginas.
Yes, we do.
It's our job is to
Yes,
take
we
care.
do. Yeah, I think, too, about like the shame surrounding lube. It's like there's this idea of or the concept of non-concordance, right? Like where you're turned on, but you're not wet enough, or maybe sometimes you're wet, but you're not turned on, like your body's not really connecting the dots. But kind of feeling the shame of like, oh no, I'm not wet. Like there's something wrong with me. Like this is embarrassing. Or I don't know if that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I have to say that this goes for both men and women. Like sometimes men can be really turned on, but they're not hard.
Mm-hmm.
And women can be really turned on, but not wet, because that's biochemistry. It doesn't always match, what our feelings are. So, just use lube.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Just lube. We need a shirt. Just lube.
Just lube. Just lube. Put it on you.
Yeah.
Put it in you. Put it on him. Whatever you need. It also helps protect your vagina, and then if you're having anal sex, really helps protect the anus, because you don't want like little tears here and there.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be safe, because if you're having sex today, you might want to have sex tomorrow.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've definitely gotten waylaid by some tearing, and I'm like, and then it's a few days before I'm like ready for anything again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, lube helps to protect you, and you can have more sex.
Yeah. So what makes Uberlube so great? Because it's great.
It's great. It's, it's this secret formula. So
tell me all about it.
So, Uberlube is a family-owned company. It's a small company. It's owned by 3 people, and at least two of them, sometimes all 3 of them, get together and make the lube every week.
Okay. I love it. It's great.
It's like, it really is this like small business secret formula thing, So, and really Stephen Magnuson, who invented Uberlube, spent a lot of time perfecting this Uberlube to get it to exactly where it is now. It's, like a medium weight. It's not too thick. It's not too thin. It keeps, it like if you manipulate it, it stays slippery. So it keeps lubricating without over lubricating. So it doesn't like get in the way of all those good feelings you want to have when you're having sex, but it allows you to have them. So, yeah. And that's really crucial with the lube. right?
Yeah.
You know, if it's too thick, there's going to be no friction. You're not going to feel anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cause that kind of, um, when you say thick lube, I think about the doctor's office and that stuff is gross.
Right. It's
Yeah.
gross, right?
So are you trying to work with the medical community and kind of change their methods when it comes to lube?
So primarily our marketing is directed towards doctors, and really we just want doctors to be able to tell their patients, you know, try this, see if you like it. And there are some doctors who use Uberlube for exams. I mean, I take my Uberlube with me to the doctor.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
You know, have
Yes.
lube will travel. So,
Oh,
but
that's such a great idea.
because I don't want that other stuff inside of me.
And
But
that works with latex and everything too.
it works with latex. Yeah, it's condom compatible.
Amazing.
Just doesn't work with silicone. So if you're like
Yeah.
having some procedure with a probe or something that has a silicone cover on it, you want to be careful. But really, like, that's our marketing, because I think, first of all, one of our goals is to get more doctors to actually talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually have a medical advisory team that helps us to get to doctors and talk to them about how to talk to women about sex, and then to actually have them recommend good lube and know the difference because they've tried it, right? So we go to all these trade shows that are medical oriented, and we sample our lube and show everybody the lube, and we're not really going there to sell. We're going there for awareness. Right, because that's really what it's all about. Now, we're also in adult stores all over the world. But a key to Uberlube is that it is doctor recommended.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that, educating the doctors, because
You know, it's like an extension of G Boutique. Like, that's what we were all about, was the education. That's what Uberlube's all about. Like, we go into stores and educate people, and we go to trade shows and educate people. We just like spreading the good word. We're spreading the good lube word. You know?
Yep.
So, and it's, you know, there's some people have some questions about silicone, and so we explain it to people. We want everybody to feel comfortable. But we also know that, you know, most people really love it when they try it. So
yeah, no, it's great. Can't recommend it enough.
I'll send you some.
Oh, exciting. Well, maybe I'll see you next week in Vegas.
Oh yeah, right. We'll be in Vegas.
Okay. So what things should we not be using as lube?
Anything with glycerin.
Okay. So what about like coconut oil, olive oil?
So my friend, Dr. Lauren Stryker, says use your coconut oil to cook with and use your lube in your vagina. I mean, really, it's fine. It's just that all those oils can actually change the vaginal biome. You know, they actually can make a difference, whereas a silicone lube won't.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people love using coconut oil, and I'm not here to say don't ever use coconut oil again. I'm just here to say if something arises and you have a problem with it, there's reasons for it. And so this will be a little bit safer for you.
Yeah. I never have found a definitive answer about the coconut oil, olive oil situation. No one can really say like, don't ever do that or do it all the time. Like, I don't know.
Well, the reason nobody could say it is because it's different for different people. Right? For some people, they have no trouble ever using coconut oil. And then some people will get a UTI.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're getting a UTI, you got to change something.
Yeah. And, you know, and I know you said, you know, coconut oil for this and lube for your vagina, but on your website, you can use lube on your hair.
Absolutely. Uberlube is great in your hair.
So you want to tame those frizzies? Just put in a little lube.
And not only that, it's great for your hair. It's also really good anti-chafe.
Oh, okay.
So for you runners or walkers or triathletes out there, it is most of the anti-chafe stuff is silicone.
Okay.
Okay. It also will shine up your tattoos. It's used a lot for scar tissue healing to
Oh,
help you to heal a little bit faster. It's great. And I know that you are in high heels a lot of your life. It's great if you have a blister to put on your blister, sort of like liquid Band-Aid.
Nice. Okay.
So it has a lot of uses.
Nice.
We have one store who has a list of 32 uses for Uberlube that she gives everybody who buys Uberlube.
I love it. Uberlube. It's not just for your vagina.
Right. Right.
But don't cook with it. We're not going to cook with Uberlube.
No, don't cook with Uberlube, although it is ingestible.
Yeah.
So don't worry about giving a blowjob with Uberlube, but don't cook with it. Okay?
Yeah, right. Awesome. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so great to catch up with you. Where can people find you, find Uberlube? Tell us all about it.
You can find Uberlube at uberlube.com. And it's also on Amazon and in adult stores all over the world. So, just go to your favorite adult store and say, do you have Uberlube? And if they say no, say, why not? You better call Cheryl. And you can, I have a website. It's CherylSloane.com, but you can also just email me at Cheryl@Uberlube.com. It's Cheryl with a C.
Yeah.
At Uberlube.com. Yeah. And I'm happy to answer anybody's questions. Yeah. We're going to put a discount code. You'll save 10% at Uberlube.com with the code Look Down There.
Awesome. I love it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right. Everybody, make sure that you go to uberlube.com and grab that discount with the code Look Down There. So exciting. And spread your legs and spread the love. Tell your friends about Uberlube and about this show. You can like and share and follow and subscribe at I Look Down There on Instagram, or follow me at Michelle Lamore. And remember always that confidence comes from the bottom up. So grab a mirror and look down there. Until next time.